This teacher gets fired for giving zeros to students who didn't turn in work. Most adults remember that part of being in school meant being held accountable. If you did the work and tried hard, you got good grades. If you goofed off and didn't do your work, you got poor grades. The students who really didn't care and refused to do the homework and the studying were held back. This is the way it was back then. And the principal and the superintendent stood behind the teachers who thought that these measures were necessary. Over the years, private schools have changed. Many have a no-fail policy. The administration believes that since parents are spending thousands of dollars on their children's education, that their children should be guaranteed to succeed. Their parents also shouldn't have to pay tuition for an extra year. You'd think that public schools are different. There was a time that was true, but today, if you think that, you'd be wrong. Diane Tirado had been a teacher for many years. After teaching at her school for several years, she decided it was time for her to move on. She was thrilled when she was offered a job at Westgate K-8 school in Port St. Lucie. She was going to be teaching U.S. history to 8th graders, and she was very excited. Diane was a great teacher, and she really cared for her students. She assigned her students to work on an Explorer notebook project. She gave the students 2 weeks to complete the project. She was sure that this was more than enough time for the class to complete the work. When the project was due, some of her students didn't have their notebook completed. Diane told them that they'd be given 1 additional day to hand in the work. On the final day, there were still some students who didn't turn in the project. This forced Diane to give the students a 0. Since they didn't hand anything in for her to grade, she couldn't give them a grade, which meant a 0. Sounds fair, right? Unfortunately, the school didn't think so. The school had a no-zero policy. This didn't make much sense. If a student didn't do any of the work, they deserved a 0. Diane didn't think this was right. If the students didn't do half the work, why did they deserve half the grade? Diane stuck with the zeros that she gave her students, only for it to have serious repercussions later. When the school department found out that Diane had given her students zeros, they fired her. She was a teacher who refused to give students a grade they didn't earn, and she was fired. Diane was furious. On her last day teaching at the school, Diane wrote a message to her students on the whiteboard. It read, "Bye kids, Ms. Tirado loves you and wishes you the best in life. I've been fired for refusing to give you a 50% for not handing anything in. Love, Mrs. Tirado." Before leaving her class for the last time, Diane took a photo of the whiteboard and she posted it to Facebook. She wanted people to know what happened and that she didn't regret standing up for what she believes in. In the post she wrote, "A grade in Mrs. Tirado's class is earned." She wrote how upset it makes her that kids today are expecting to get paid and live their lives simply for showing up. She knows this isn't how real life works, and she believes that it's up to educators to teach them this. Diane believes that teaching students shouldn't be as hard as it is today. Teachers teach content, and they expect their students to listen. Assignments and tests are given, and students are expected to perform to the best of their ability. The teacher should have the right to grade the assignments accordingly. Sadly, that's not how the education system works today. Diane posted her photo and it quickly went viral. People were sharing the post and reacting to it. Most of the people who commented agreed with Diane. She shouldn't have been fired for doing what a teacher's supposed to do. If we don't hold students accountable when they're young, what are they going to do when they get older? When a kid grows up and they're out in the real world, they won't have a school department coddling them, giving them credit when it isn't deserved. When Diane was fired, she was still on a probationary period. Because of this, the school department was required to give her a reason for her termination. She couldn't go to the teachers union for help, and she didn't want to. She knew she couldn't work for a school who would force her to give students credit that they didn't deserve. It's against what she believes, and she wasn't going to do it. Good for you, Diane.